Now, while we disagree on a lot in this country, no question, one thing is for sure. We have long stood for standing up for democracy. We've also long stood for protecting our national security secrets through many, many administrations, Republican and Democratic. And there may be more documents where this came from, because we know that Trump had and refused to return 31 more classified ones. John Brennan served as the director of the CIA under President Barack Obama. I was proud to work with him, and he joins me now. So I know that we have talked about this before, but given this is so central to the superseding indictment, I just felt it was so important to remind people of the details here. What was your reaction with prosecutors bringing a superseding indictment to, among other things, specifically bringing this extra charge concerning the Iran document?
Well, Jen, I think it's very important because of the gravity of this. And as you pointed out, we have this one audio tape of when Donald Trump showed this document and flaunted it in front of individuals who had no right to see it. We have no idea how many other times he might have done the same thing, including to foreign visitors that were visited him in Mar-a-Lago. So obviously this document moved from the White House to Mar-a-Lago, up to Bedminster and back to Mar-a-Lago. So I think there is a concern about who else might have seen it. But secondly, something like this would provide the details that the U.S. military wants to make sure are kept quite secret, because we frequently will make preparations for any type of military action against our adversaries or potential adversaries. And so a document like this that was shown to a president would have been at the strategic high level. It probably would have identified what type of military assets, naval, air, ground forces would have been used, what would have been the deployment schedule, the timeline of events, what type of preparation we would have engaged in order to undertake some type of military action, which of our partners or allies might have participated in such an operation, as well as what airspace might have been traversed.
It's such an important point. I mean, not that I've obviously haven't seen the document. It sounds to me, as you just described, like one with contingency plans. I had very high security clearance. I would not have had access to this document. Give us a sense, what kind of a small group in government, how expansive would the circle have been of people who would have access to a document like this?
Oh, very, very tight. When I worked at the White House for 4 years during the first Obama term, I had access to these types of documents, but it would have been in the White House Situation Room with a very small group of senior officials, secretaries, deputy secretaries, the National Security Advisor, the President and Vice President of the United States. That's when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, as well as maybe some of the senior military officers, would bring such a document into the White House Situation Room, walk through it, talk about the slides that were being presented, talking about our capabilities, what type of military resources and assets we would be deploying, how we would need to do it, what type of support would be required, and what type of advance notice that the president would need in order to initiate the large machinery that is needed in terms of the assets that would be deployed. Also, we'd be talking about, again, the foreign actors that might be a participant in such an activity or operation. So there are just so many things, and I am just so concerned that if he was, in fact, showing this to individuals, again, I just worry about who he might have shown it to in terms of his trying to just, brag and show off. These are the most sensitive types of military operations. And what he has done, we talk about putting the national security at risk. He's put the men and women and the military forces at risk, because what you want to do is to keep all of these plans and preparations as secret as possible so that there's the element of surprise. If, in fact, he has exposed something that, in fact, would make our forces much more vulnerable to some type of counter strikes on the part of adversaries, again, this just shows that Donald Trump was so reckless and careless, and he really doesn't care about what the damage he does to our national security when he does things like this.
You've raised this a couple times, and I wanted to ask you more about it. We've talked about it before. That just given the global dynamics of such a document, obviously the Iranians would love to see a document like this. We have no idea who he showed it to. What other adversaries or foreign powers would be interested in a document like this?
Oh, just about everybody.
Fair. What are the ones that concern you the most, I guess I should say?
Well, certainly, you take a look at what the relationship is right now between Iran and Russia. and how the military cooperation and collaboration there has just increased dramatically. The Russians would love to get their hands on this as a way to show it to the Iranians and to be able to leverage it. So having a document or information like this is very, very marketable. It could be used by any number of countries or foreign services in order to provide insight and to be able to extract information as well as additional cooperation from the Iranians. But I know that just any type of foreign actor, particularly in the region, would want to know about this so that they can then anticipate that in the event of some type of crisis, they could then anticipate and plan for the different types of actions that the United States would be involved in. And they could take steps to thwart us as well. If they didn't want us to do something, this is the way that they could, in fact, find an opportunity to undercut what we had planned.
Now, there were dozens of other documents listed in the indictment. We don't know what the specifics of all of them, but there were specific security clearance classifications on those documents. Do you have concerns about other documents, who he could have shown them to, or are there documents, given the classification listed in that list, that could be even worse than what we know about the Iran document?
When I saw the photos of the cover sheets of those documents, it wasn't just top secret. It was all the different code words, different programs involved. Again, these were the most sensitive types of documents and programs that the U.S. government has. And when I was at the White House, these documents were kept under lock and key in SCIFs, in the Special Compartmented Information Facilities. They were guarded also by Secret Service and armed officers around the White House because we wanted to make sure that there would be no leak of this information outside because of the tremendous damage it could do. So the fact that he had so many of these documents for so long, and we're never going to know who in fact was shown these documents or what he did with them, clearly his efforts to try to cover up and try to destroy the videotapes and other types of things, it just shows how intrinsically dishonest, corrupt, and reckless Donald Trump has been with our national security. Again, I'm glad that Jack Smith has brought this to the fore in terms of being one of the charges that he is going to face, because, again, it is so grave and so serious. And we need to send a signal and a message to everybody else that even the president of the United States is not going to get away with this, because if he does, then what is going to lead others to do the same thing and using the Trump defense?
Thank you, John Brennan, for just a sober reminder of the seriousness of all of these documents and what could be in them. I appreciate you joining me tonight.